It may feel like it's the 674th day of free agency, but it's really only day 3. What are the Chiefs doing and what aren't they doing? Where do they go from here? We're going to get into it all. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. We appreciate you coming back. This is Locked On, the podcast network, your team every day and for free. You can find us over on Locked On Chiefs on YouTube. Like, sub, and hit the bell over there, as well as every free audio platform in the world, because that's what we do. We are not charging you for anything. We appreciate you making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, check out the draft show, will you? Because it's getting hairy over there. We are getting into it. Croc, me, and a number of different guests. It's kind of fun. I'm Brian Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. We do a bit of both. And the Matrix is out. The first version of the Athletic Matrix with all the combine data is out and ready for you. If you happen to be a Locked On listener, just use Locked On as the code and you get a nice discount. Go over there to rogueapc.com and check that out. I'm also over at RGR Football and obviously the draft show. Man, that's a lot to get through. Ugh.
It takes you forever just to get through everything you do. My name's Chris Clark. As you can see on YouTube, if you're watching, I am the founder of Chiefs Corner, and I am talking about all the Chiefs moves when it comes to salary cap and getting more into analytics and into statistics as the offseason progresses. Going to be writing a little bit more about different players and the players that they bring in. So going to get into that. Just wrote about Justin Reid, the signing. Got all his contract details over at the site. Wrote about the Frank Clark restructure, although we're still waiting on information on that. Lots to talk about, though.
Yeah, there is. And this is like the big complaint, right? And yes, folks, we'll talk about Reid and the things that have happened coming up here in a little bit, segment or two. But we got to talk about what's not happening and what we've watched happen. We're recording this Thursday afternoon. So understand that we can only talk about what's gone on to this point. And to this point, not a lot has gone on for the Chiefs. They've watched edge after edge after edge sign these outrageous deals. And I don't have a problem with them staying out of that. You heard me cry and pound the table for Von Miller that he still had stuff left in the tank. Well, evidently the Bills thought he had a whole lot more than me because they gave him a 20-year average for 6 seasons. That's crazy to me. Is that the biggest shock for you?
It's a shock, but the reality is it's more like a 3-year deal for 52 or 53. So it's closer to like 17 or 18 a year. The final 3 years he's never going to get to. So That's more for just bonus proration, which is a big thing. I mean, that's a huge deal. With them being able to take it out 5 years, they can go into the 5th year of that contract to offset that guaranteed money and the signing bonus they gave him. So I think that's a big part of it. Really quick, when you start looking at what the Chiefs have done and what they haven't done, the thought has been that they haven't had any money and that they could free up money. And we talked about this with Seth, or I talked about this with Seth yesterday on the show, and I got some clarification, so I want to point this out. The Chiefs, from what I understand, could have restructured Patrick Mahomes' deal whenever they wanted to. They didn't have to wait for the new league year, and they don't have to wait for tomorrow when it's supposed to kick in. So why they're waiting at this point, I don't know. It's not an issue of Patrick Mahomes signing off on it because it's a deal. It's just basically a change in the way it's accounted for on the cap. It has nothing to do with the money he's getting. He's going to get the same amount of money and at the same date that they're going to be giving it to him. So that has nothing to do with it. I know he's on his honeymoon right now, or at least I think he is. Well, or was.
And that's something that we have to get into about what they do next. But I think discretion has been pretty good for them. Like we said, like the kind of money that's going to these older veteran edge rushers, it's pretty steep. And honestly, the same thing has been true of the wide receiver. Like I think the craziness that went on in Jacksonville kind of set the table, not only for the negotiation with the extension for Tyreek Hill, but the rest of the market. Like now we understand that Allen Robinson is talking with the Rams as of this afternoon. A lot of that, I think, probably, again, takes them out of it until they get some of their restructures done.
Well, and the big question I have is Allen Robinson is really more like a 2-year deal for $30 million. He has $30 million guaranteed. So, around $15 million a year is his APY. I think Kansas City could do that deal, but that's pretty expensive. When you start looking at Allen Robinson, I think I would rather go a little younger at that position if you're going to sign a guy longer term and try to get a 3 or 4 or 5 year deal that you can use, all of that bonus proration for the signing bonus. And maybe that's what they're trying to do with Juju. We'll see. Not exactly sure what they're doing or what they're waiting on right now.
And that's the big key is they have all those dominoes that can fall. Like technically they could restructure Chris Jones as well. They
Travis
could
Kelce,
arrive, right? They
Joe
could
Thuney.
arrive at a deal with Orlando Brown. Just because they put the tag on him doesn't mean you can't get something inked. All those things create more space. And that's, I think, the biggest questions that we don't have insight to right now is why none of that has happened, at least not that's been reported yet. Well, you expect that by tomorrow, right? Maybe by the time people are listening to this, right?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, Tyreek Hill has almost a $21 million cap hit in 2022. That's not going to happen. They will not play under that. Chris Jones is at $30 million almost. Frank Clark is still 26.3 according to over the cap, although we do know that got reduced to, I think, 11 points or 13.6 or something like that. So basically they saved, they're paying him $100,000 more than it would have cost them to get this cap savings of $12.7 million this year. So they got 12.6, not 12.7. So in my mind, that's a win for Kansas City.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there's a couple of things there, and it all predicates before you can do anything else. And that's part of the problem. And I know fans are frustrated. We're going to get into what they can do or what we think they should do. We're going to do a bit of a reset here on free agency going into Thursday evening, Friday morning, whenever y'all are hearing this. But before we do that, we might want to lay a little action on the NCAA tournament as it's begun. You can do all of that at BetOnline for odds, contests, the player props. That's always interesting. Everything that you need to get into the action for March Madness, as well as all the landing spots for free agents, all the draft landing spots, who's going to pick who. It's all available over at BetOnline with scores, podcasts, and news all the time so that you can make informed decisions. Just go check that out over on their website. You can use it from your mobile device or anywhere else. And when you do, you'll get all the trends and actions that you need to lay your money down on the line in a smart way. Check it out at BetOnline where the game starts. So let's make this a reset. Can't deal with what they haven't done or have done in the last few days. But from right now, couple of hot topics. You still need edge help. You still need wide receiver help. You could go D-line, you could go corner. Yes, you accomplished the goal of having a replacement that's viable for Honey Badger. Okay, great. That's just a start. So assuming that they get all this cap space, whatever their machinations are that they're doing, what do you want to see them do starting from Thursday evening?
Well, it looks like Chris Jones is trying to recruit Fletcher Cox on Twitter. So there's that.
That's what I'm talking about. That's job number one for me. The edge market is so overblown for me. I would rather go offer Fletcher, hey, if you're talking 16, 18, come to Kansas City. We can get that done for you. We can make space, and you have a chance at a ring. No offense. I don't see Philly winning a ring anytime soon. We're always in the hunt. Come play for the guy who drafted you, because it was Brett Veach in the building. It was Andy Reid calling the shots the year that he was drafted number 12 overall for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'd be on that phone like right now.
And if you get a guy like Fletcher Cox, that basically makes your edge need a lot further down the list, because you have two guys that can get after the passer on the interior. And I know we thought we had that in Jerron Reed and Chris Jones last year. Didn't work out that way with Reed. I don't know exactly what the problem was, but Fletcher Cox has shown that he still has the ability to get after the passer, and that would be a dynamic duo in the middle of a defense. And there's still other guys out there that they could go get on the edge. Zadarius Smith, who we thought was going to the Ravens, that got announced yesterday right after Seth and I finished recording, pulled out of his deal with the Ravens. So not exactly sure what's going on there. That's another move you could make it edge. I think that they're going to be looking at the draft to try to improve those positions, but it's going to be hard to get a guy that's going to step in and be a big impact. But if you can get a guy like Fletcher Cox on your team, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it alleviates the need for edge in free agency. I think at that point, you just have to bite the bullet and you can say, we're going to draft maybe two. I don't think there's any way, unless they sign a true starting edge in free agency, that they get out of the draft without drafting two of them. Maybe different types. The question becomes,
or they trade.
Any chance? Well, yeah, I still see that as a very long shot just because of what you'll have to give up in draft capital. And you're already in this position that you're low on cap space. The solution to that long term is draft picks
Well,
on
and
rookie contracts.
I agree with that. Although Daniil Hunter could be had, I think, for a cheaper contract, a cheaper pick, but in his cap space would not be that bad. But
Okay.
he's been hurt a lot the past couple of years, so big questions on that.
Yeah. Same thing with Smith. Evidently we
Mhm.
understand that the Chiefs are interested. I'm guessing he pulled out of that deal with the Ravens though because he wants more money and he saw what the other edge guys got. So that makes it more difficult right now. I'd probably put my eggs in the basket of Fletcher Cox and hope that you can get that done.
Yeah, I think that would be a smart move for Kansas City because in my mind, if you're looking at that, if you could do a 2 or 3 year deal with Fletcher Cox and spread out, give him a big signing bonus that lowers his overall cap hit this year, and then you have a bigger cap hit in 2023. I think that's a good deal for Kansas City if they could get something like that done if he wants to go and leave Philadelphia. The other thing that does is, like you said, it gives Kansas City the ability to go out and get an edge in the draft. And I think that's key because edge is going to be one of those positions that you're always going to be paying a premium to if you have to get in free agency.
Absolutely. So say they get something done along the front. It's Darius Fletcher or something, right? What else? You've made some space theoretically here. Do you go, is next priority for you still wide receiver? Or do you think that Juju is kind of something that's kind of laying in the background, maybe third wave? Because we're squarely into the second wave now, folks. Or
It's
do you
hard
go
for me
corner?
it's hard for me to know what their plan exactly is. I would think that everything we heard in the offseason is they wanted a free agent wide receiver. So I would expect that they're still wanting to do that. I think Juju is probably a guy that they have a lot of interest in. And at 25, I think it makes a lot of sense to sign him to a longer term deal if that's what it takes to get it done. Because I think there's a lot of value there. I think he can step in and really help this team. Then you have other guys that are getting released. And I know you don't want Cole Beasley, but that pushes other guys as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that there's going to be other guys that are going to be out there. Linebackers is somebody that I would look at. Joe Schobert just got released. I'm not saying he'd be a perfect fit, but he's a pretty decent player. Right tackle's another position you could look at. Corner is obviously
Collins
a
is
position.
out there.
Yeah,
Everybody
Collins will
wanted
be
a
out
trade.
there. Right. He's out there as of tomorrow because they can't sign him right now. He's still technically under Dallas's control. But, you got Collins out there. You've got Billy Turner out there. You've got several different players. And you did bring back in Andrew Wylie. And I love the deal they gave Wylie because it's a really cheap deal for a veteran guy. $2.5 million guaranteed is cheap. So, and he plays what? He technically could play all 5 positions, I think. I don't think you'd want to see him at left tackle or at center, but he could.
You never know. There's plenty of viability there. So there are some things there. I have trouble thinking that they're going to go on a spending spree. Maybe we have to think about what the overarching thing is because like with Beasley, I would take Kyle Phillips in the 5th over Cole Beasley. But
I'm just throwing him out because he just got released. That's the whole reason I threw his name out.
No, I get you. And maybe that's what we have to take a step back and look at the overall plan because it is throughout the offseason about what you go to camp with and what you start week 1 with.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe after this, we can get into bigger plans, overarching, what do they call it in the movies? The over story.
Fair enough. But before we get there, we want to talk about, I know all the Chiefs fans out there are very hungry for more free agent news. And unfortunately, we don't have it for you right now. But by the time you listen to this, maybe we will have some that we'll have to cover at a later point. But I do want to talk to you about our friends over at Built Bar. Have you tried the Puffs yet? If you haven't, they are fantastic. They have a lot of different flavors that you need to try. They are one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Cinnamony, churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, all very good. All Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. Yes, that's Puffs included. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with these. They are definitely better. Go to built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. Very high protein, low calorie, high fiber, and low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. mint brownie, coconut almond, and new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They have a lot of different flavors at Built Bar. If you haven't tried them yet, go check them out. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com.
So long story short, you got to be ready for opening day. You got to be ready to go to camp.
Right.
You have some opportunities. I think there will be some veterans that are let go after the draft as well. So remember, there's that little bit of free agency that comes after the fact as well.
Which is like the fifth wave, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I think that,
and then you have some that are going to be cut before season.
True, yeah, the late cuts. Mm-hmm. Let's hope that it doesn't go to late cuts, because right. I see Melvin Ingram as a wave 5 guy post draft, but not like going into camp.
Right.
Like, here, Melvin, take OTAs off. We don't need you. You know, we'll give you a break on camp. You can practice 2 days a week. You know, something.
Well, actually, that'd be best for Kansas City, especially if they draft 2 edges.
Yeah,
because then you get those guys in there and they get snaps and they get into the defense. They start understanding what's going on. Even if Melvin's there, maybe they give him and say, "Hey, we know you're going to be the starter, but we need to get these guys, through and see." He knows the defense from last year, so not a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing that I will say is I want to see that happen after the draft.
Yep.
Because I don't want to see it turn into a bidding where someone else will come along and give more money, just like they did last year. And then he might get cut again. He might end up back. Like, I'm tired of the late season addition to try to shore up a position that should be one of your top 4 priorities every season is your edge rushers, period.
Yeah, and this is a class where you're going to have to probably trade up to get an edge. So you got to be looking at that too.
The depth is there. There's a ton. It's
but are they
start for you?
Right, and that's the key is, are they going to be guys that can step in and start? And I get what you're saying. The depth is there, and those are going to be some rotational guys. But the Chiefs need starters, and they really need 2 starters. So to get those type of guys that you think are going to be starters that can step in day one and start, you're probably going to have to trade up if you're going to get an edge in the first round. But that's a big if.
Like Jermaine Johnson, I had him as a low round 1 guy. He's clearly above that now. He's getting talked up farther and farther. Power edges, a guy that can play a 5 tech or can play out wide. Cam Thomas, keep an eye on him. Like, there are definitely options for the Chiefs at 30 if they stay at 30.
Right.
If they don't elect to trade for anyone now, and they don't sign an edge in any way in free agency, acquire one before the draft,
or get interior pass rush.
Well, I'm talking specifically about edge. Even if they get interior edge rush, you still got to go get one in the draft, right?
Right.
That to me is becoming the top priority. You can fill in with wide receiver help. You can maybe fill in with corner help if you feel you need it. I'm not so sure that they're not going to ride with the guys they got and draft more guys to come in behind Fenton, L'Jarius,
and Baker.
Yeah, that seems to be the way forward. If I know Brett Veach, they're not going to value corners very much.
It's kind of the way it seems, and that's kind of disappointing, but you got to hope that he gets it right and that they're able to play. So big, huge season for Baker, because he's going to be, right now he's considered a starter. So that's a big question mark going forward. I do want to say this, though. You start looking at the edge and what they're going to have to do at that position. You start getting to the point where you're absolutely right. You have to worry about, are you going to be able to get a guy that can step in and start? Dana is a rotational player in my mind. He's not a starter. He's getting better, but he's not quite starter material. He's not that guy that you want being your starting edge. And other than Frank Clark, who took a big step back last year, they don't really have a guy on the roster right now that has the ability to get after the passer very well and quickly. I mean, and Frank Clark is a question because 4.5 sacks last year. How's that going to play out? I think that Kansas City is in a position where they have the ability to make some moves if they choose to. The question is, and we will know probably by the time that this is settling tomorrow, about 24 hours from when we're recording, you will know whether or not Mahomes' deal got restructured, because it's due tomorrow. So that has to happen before tomorrow. And if it happens, then they're going to have cap space and they can make some moves. If it doesn't, then that means they are relying on cap space that they're going to open up with the Tyreek Hill deal or a Orlando Brown deal, most likely.
Yep. or Chris. Maybe they're going to take it off of Chris's contract. I don't know.
Maybe. You're going to have to do something. I just don't know where they're headed. And there's going to be a lot of players that need to be added back to this roster. Right now, we're still sitting here, and they have 62 players on a roster that needs 90.
Yeah.
So
there's a long way to go.
a lot of work to do. And yeah, I get that there's going to have to be draft picks, and I get that there's going to have to be all these different things, and that's fine. But long way to go in free agency, long way to go in the draft. And I think Kansas City's in a good position. I'm kind of surprised that they haven't made a move yet that takes care of one of those positions. I guess they took care of it at safety. That's great, but they still need another safety. So while that's not at the top of their draft needs, I think that they could still be looking at drafting a safety, or maybe they're going to bring in a free agent. Who knows? But that's still going to be a need. Corners a need. Linebackers a need. Defensive line overall is a need. Defensive tackle and edge. Right tackle's a need. Wide receivers a need. You could make an argument that Austin Hooper could be somebody that they could look at if he wanted to do a cheap deal and try to chase a ring. There are a lot of teams that got better in the AFC right now. I don't think you have to worry about Cleveland going into this year, though.
No, probably not. And I do want to point out, because I think you missed it. Did you see what I did there? I said Brett Veach won't prioritize corner.
Yeah.
So that means they're
I did
to
miss
get
it.
something done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did miss that. I also want to throw out there, though, that you see what is going on in Cleveland right now. That's exactly why you got to be happy that Kansas City doesn't have to worry about something like that. Because that's a horrible situation, and it's ending the way it had to. There's no way that he was going to let them go try to talk to Deshaun Watson and still come back and be their quarterback.
And not get offended. Yeah, I mean, that's the way that it goes.
Right. So
you had to know that before you even initiated it.
Right. So he's going to get traded. So, but the other thing I will say about the draft, and the thing that makes me hit pause just a little bit on Kansas City being able to get an edge at 30 or even anywhere close to 30 is look at what we've seen in the NFL this year with all the QB trades and all the QB movement. That says a lot about what teams think about the QBs in this draft.
Yeah.
We've seen some QBs that people are talking about 3 or 4 QBs going in the first round. Matt Miller just said on Twitter earlier today, this is the worst QB draft in 10 years. And if that's the case, then no QBs went in the draft in the first round in 2013 when Kansas City had the number 1 overall pick. Geno Smith went in the second round. So
yeah. As much as I agree with Matt on the viability of this class, we live in a different world today.
That's true.
They will push those quarterbacks up.
Yeah, they're going to get pushed up, but I don't know that we're going to see 4 go in the first round. Maybe. True. But there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be desperate. So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm betting on 3. Luckily, the Chiefs don't need one. We'll see who else might come along. If we get something news breaking, we will break some news and give you an extra drop of a podcast tonight. But we want to thank you guys for being here, listening to us on the audio platforms. If you're on YouTube, like, sub, and hit the bell. Give us your opinion. Especially on YouTube, it's super easy to leave your comments over there. You can leave them in the iTunes reviews as well. But want to know where you're at with this team, where they're at with trying to get something done in free agency and rebuild this roster, especially on the defensive side. There's a lot to get done. It's Mock Draft Monday to start the week. We'll be back with you for then, and we'll try to address what they can address in the meantime. So be ready for that. Thank you for spending your time with us. We'll talk to you on Monday.